Cool, dog. I'm all street today.
I know. Cool, dog.
Yeah, man.
That's the extent of your streetness.
That's exhibit. Yo, dog. That's cool.
That's cool.
That's cool, man. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the HooperCast. I'm Mr. Hooper, and I'm alone today. Just kidding. Dustin's here.
I'm here.
I'm just alone in life. That's not true either. I have a family who I love very much.
This is true.
This is true.
You're never alone.
What?
You're never alone in the universe, Sam.
That's true.
There are apparently infinite numbers of Transformers out there.
Yes, and they just... who don't participate in the first three movies, but then it's like, all right, well, after three crises, I trust Optimus Prime.
Yeah, oh, here's some more, by the way. Mm-hmm. Oh, and here's some more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And some more.
Yeah, and then we'll make some more.
Where were all they? I thought in the first one there was only like 5 of them.
Yeah, and then in like the fourth one, it's like, hey, there's only a few of us left now. It's like, what?
Yeah.
I
doubt it.
I think they planted the seed in other movies, like that new ones keep coming to the planet because they know, like, that Prime is there. Like, oh, Salvation.
I gotcha.
I don't know. Just, I would think after 3 huge incidents, it's like, oh, I'm not going there, yo.
Yeah, I think I'll pass.
I'm not going to Earth.
I love you, Optimus, but I don't know if I want to go to Earth.
I don't know. Risking my life isn't that great either, so.
Those humans are kind of ugly.
Uh-huh.
Weird.
All right, we've got some movies to talk about. I have one. Dustin has more than one. We also got some. I guess it might impact film news, but it's mostly just comic book news.
Yeah, there probably won't be much of an impact from it.
Maybe down the line, or at least they'll use it as a way to justify
sure
new stuff they'll want to do in the movies. But
right, sure.
Well, why don't we just go straight into films? Then, Dustin, give me a film.
Okay, so the most recent one I saw was Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. For those of you who don't know, let me give you a brief synopsis real quick. So at the end of Rise of the Planet of the Apes, Caesar, the super intelligent ape, chimpanzee to be exact, goes to the Redwoods with some of his ape buddies and begins this new civilization. But also this new flu has broken out, and they're calling it the simian flu. So this new movie picks up with sort of the devastation left by the outbreak of simian flu. The humans used to have run-ins with the apes, but it's been about 10 years since the start of the outbreak, and the apes haven't seen a human in 2 years. So the apes have begun a new civilization. They have, an awesome little city going. They ride horses, and they have, primitive weapons, and they go hunting and raise families. And some of them are even writing language and passing down laws and commands, within their society.
Like they've delegated like leadership roles and
yeah,
wow.
Exactly. And but then at the top of everything is Caesar, and everyone has utmost respect for Caesar because he's the super intelligent one. He's the one that was genetically modified, and he's just kind of teaching all of these others,
which is insane because that's the way society should run. Is the smartest guy should be in charge.
That would make sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. That would be smart. Yeah. Well, maybe one day. But yeah, so he's, everyone respects him and trusts his judgment, and he has a family now. He has a wife named Cornelia, and he has a son named Blue Eyes. And I guess they got kind of lazy with that name, and
Cornelia,
just like, yeah,
Cornelia or
Blue Eyes.
Oh, Blue Eye.
Blue Eye. Yeah, Cornelius like, what do we name him, Caesar?
We could name him after me, but a dude and call him Cornelius. Nah. That sucks.
That'll come way down the line.
Yeah.
And then also you get to see Cornelia gives birth to a baby, and so he's got 2 sons now, Caesar. And can
you imagine mocapping that scene? All right, so
I know,
today
right?
You're going to lay on the ground.
I think it was Judy Greer too. It's like that's crazy.
Oh.
But yeah, so Yeah, that would be a crazy scene. You're an ape giving birth.
Okay, now just
action. How do you, as an actor, how are you like? Oh, I got this. I know what to do.
So how do we mocap the baby? Well, we've got this basketball that we put all the dots on, and you're just going to kind of roll it out.
We put a real baby in a motion capture suit, and no, but yeah. So things are going really good for the apes, and then man shows up. And
dun, dun, dun.
And these men don't actually mean any harm to the apes. What they want is they're sort of a last little faction living in San Francisco, and they want to get this dam running because they can supply power to their people. They can have heat and electricity, all that stuff. And so they're like, if we can get the dam running, then we'll be good to go. So of course, but the dam is sort of in the ape territory. So Caesar's like, I want this to be peaceful. I don't mean you guys any harm, and I know you don't mean us any harm. So let's just stay out of each other's way and do what we have to do. So really, they don't paint either species, man or ape, as the villain here, like I thought they would. Instead, the villain comes from, I don't want to spoil it, but it's one of the characters rather than the race, if that makes sense. Like, I expected it to be like all the humans were evil,
right,
and the apes were going to be like, oh no, we have to fight them now. But it's very much individuals that are the villain, not the race. So they paint both of these groups as peaceful, people just out for their own best interests, but not at the expense of the other group. So anyway, that's basically the story. Caesar's thrust into this sort of conflict for power, and people that trust Caesar begin to not trust Caesar, or I should say apes that trust Caesar begin to not trust him, and likewise the humans started to infight as well. So it's actually a really cool little piece, and Andy Serkis is so good, and I always said I really wished he had gotten the supporting actor nom for Rise, just because I think it's time.
Yeah.
But I do think he should get it for this. I think there's a lot of emotion in this character, and I know there's way more that goes into it than just Andy Serkis, but at the same time, Andy really does bring the performance in, and now there's a voice for the character too, and it's Andy. It's not like in the last one, I think he says one word at the end, but in this one there's a voice, so there's much more of an acting job that he did. But anyway, the visual effects, as you can imagine, are absolutely stunning. There's a couple of points where it seems a little, maybe they could have spent a little more time on some certain points. I can understand that, and I can forgive stuff like that. I'm pretty forgiving when it comes to visual effects, especially in a movie that relies on them as heavily as this does. I can kind of roll with the punches, because there are some really beautiful shots, really beautiful motion capture and CGI work in this. So really great. Matt Reeves directs this. I think the last thing I saw of his was Cloverfield. Or he did Let Me In, didn't he? I saw that.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I saw that. So that's the last thing I saw. He's a great director. I like him. I think he's got a good future ahead of him, and he's a Planet of the Apes fan. So as I said last time, I've been kind of rewatching some of the old ones to get ready for this, and I can see the love that he's putting in, like these little references that most people won't get, and they're not like fan service either. It's where he's gone to Michael Giacchino, who scores the movie, and says, "Listen to the score from the original film, and give me that at these specific points," and it is phenomenal. Like that they can bring a musical homage. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's stuff like that. Nothing feels out of place. It doesn't feel fan servicey. I guess if I had to complain about anything, I would say that maybe I feel like the time was split pretty evenly between the apes and the men. But I guess maybe you could cut down some of the extraneous human characters. There are a couple of them that have very little to do. Get rid of them, give us a little more ape, because that's really what I came to see But yeah, no, I enjoyed it a whole lot. I'll say this, I think Caesar is still, to me, the best character of the whole franchise. This Caesar. There was a Caesar from the old movies. I'm talking about this Caesar. And he's one of the greatest protagonists in a movie like this in a long time, in a sci-fi actioner. And I can't help but feel for him. And especially when you see, he's a family man, a family ape, if you will. And I think there's some layers to Caesar that most action movies don't kind of give their characters, and I enjoyed it. I had a good time with it.
Wow, yeah, I do want to see this. I don't know if I'll catch it in theaters or not, but I'm definitely interested because I like what they did with that last one. So yeah, well, that's good to hear that's good. Just for singularity, do you want to go ahead and launch into your retro review?
Sure, I can do that. All right, so I'll just go ahead and jump into my retro review, which is Conquest of the Planet of the Apes. This is the fourth film of the original 5. I have not watched the last one, Battle of the Planet of the Apes, yet. I do intend to. The way to look at this is Conquest is to Rise as Battle is to Dawn. So they're not official remakes, but Rise of the Planet of the Apes and Conquest for the Planet of the Apes, they're pretty similar. And you can tell they took a lot of cues from Conquest as they built, the screenplay for Rise. It's a good addition to the Planet of the Apes franchise. At the time, it was probably pretty crazy because it dealt with a lot of stuff like slavery and racism and all kinds of stuff. And so basically the point of this is between Escape from Planet of the Apes and Conquest of the Planet of the Apes, I believe it's been like 20 years, something like that. There's been an outbreak and every dog and cat on Earth died. So humans, desperate for companionship, turned to monkeys.
Damn things make me sneeze all the time.
I know, right? It would be heaven for you.
Yeah, I don't care. Bring on this virus. Give it to me.
Right, exactly. But yeah, humans are desperate for companionship. They go to chimpanzees and gorillas and orangutans, and what starts as companionship becomes slavery, and they realize that they can teach the apes to do more. So you see apes are hairstylists and waiters and all of these really goofy things.
I want to see barbershop and beauty shop but cast with just apes.
That would be amazing. I will. How can I contribute? Is that on Kickstarter yet? Because I want that.
We'll have it up by the time we're done with this podcast.
Good, let's do it.
Oh man, it's our first flagship motion picture.
Yes.
Oh man,
I really want that now. Thank you for mentioning that.
Let's write that down.
Yeah, that goes in the notebook. Yeah, so they're doing these tasks, and humans are being lazy and being like, "Hey, do more things for me." And so the apes, are kind of like, whatever. There's an ape which is the child of some of the smart apes. I won't get too much into it, but there's time travel involved. And so one of the smart apes from the future is now in the past. And this is like the 1990s or so that the movie is set. So it's really weird to have lived in the 90s and been like, the 90s weren't like this at all. But that's what they thought the 90s would be like in the 70s. The super smart ape, chimpanzee, ends up in the custody of the government. And the government, before they hand out the slaves, they train them for a task. And so the president or whatever, the big dude, buys this super smart chimp and names him Caesar. And so this Caesar is very much against the humans and really hates everything that they do and stand for. So he begins a war which is way more personal to him and way more antagonistic. It's intense. The revolution that Caesar leads in the reboot movies is way more peaceful. So this is a really different Caesar. It's not bad. It's not a bad movie. Like I said, it deals with some heavy themes that most movies like that don't. It's not one of my favorite of the franchise. I still like, the first 3 better, probably. But, that may also be because I saw it after Rise, so I kind of figured some of the things that were going to happen because I'd seen Rise, which drew from them. It is a good movie, and I'm 4 movies into the 5-movie series, and at this point I would recommend the series as a whole. So I do think it's interesting enough to sit down and kind of watch. And I think I said this last time, but I like that they feel episodic,
like a series. They
do. It's very much serialized in a way that most movies aren't. If you have, say, Mission Impossible or whatever, there are 4 Mission Impossible movies, but that you could kind of watch any one of them, and in any order and be okay. But these, you really need to watch in the order that they were made, and I think it has a more serial-esque, is that a word? Approach to the story. And anyway, so it's good. It's good old-fashioned sci-fi stuff, and
it's good because I didn't have the impression that they were good movies. Like every critic I'd heard, everyone who would talk about the Planet of the Apes franchise would pretty much say that the original was good, and that was it. Like I didn't know there were so many, and everyone made me believe that none of them were that great.
Yeah, well, no, I was under the same impression. I bought it more or less just out of curiosity. But I'm finding that I enjoy them. Maybe it's because I can laugh at them a little bit. But I think they're not as bad as people say. And again, I think I've said this before too. It takes a lot for me to hate a movie, and these certainly don't make me hate them. I mean, they can be a little slow and they can be a little tedious, and the makeup is kind of funny sometimes, but it doesn't. It doesn't strike me as being like, oh, this is a bad movie. Like, I think even the worst one, I think generally people say the second one is the worst, and I actually kind of liked it. I mean, whatever.
It's interesting because this is is that most of your thoughts on? Is that pretty much all your thoughts on the movie?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay, I wanted to well, hang on, let me play you out. Sorry. I wanted to sort of a segue between before we go to the more movies, just the idea that this is like a personal thing for me. I've recently kind of realized that I was never like the concept of a guilty pleasure and and high art. I don't know, we've talked about like the nature of criticism before, and how like there's I obviously judge a film. I do judge certain films differently because I the only real difference I treat films with is what are they trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really try to like think about them as, I don't give like Tree of Life any more stars for trying to be high art if it's boring. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I try to think like, I'm not trying to put my mind in the mindset of the average person, but at the same time, like, I try to think of who our audience is sometimes, and I just think, like, half the time, I just want to know, am I going to be bored? Like when we were talking about The Leftovers, for example, The Leftovers is not artless. Like, it's done with clear artistic intent, and it probably achieves that. But me, as just the casual viewer, I'm just like kind of bored, not really invested.
Yeah.
And maybe the people who were saying that these original Planet of the Apes movies were bad were people who thought more highly of themselves and thought that they had grand taste, And wonder how much pretension is involved in calling a movie a piece of shit. It's like, is it really a piece of shit, or are you just kind of stuck up?
Right.
You know what I mean?
No, I wonder the same thing, because like I said, Planet of the Apes, these movies aren't bad, and they do have things to say, and I find that entertaining. I like to think about sort of what the intent of the movie is, and I know Planet of the Apes, these movies aren't intended to change the world or change your thought process or make you realize something you've never realized before. At the base of any movie, any movie, I don't care who makes it or what it's about, any movie should be about entertaining people.
Yeah.
I mean, at the very least. I mean, it can be super artful.
Oh, yeah.
And creative, but it has to draw my attention. It has to entertain me. Otherwise, if I'm not entertained, I'm not going to finish it.
Yeah, so whatever point you're trying to get across to me is lost because I got bored and fell asleep.
Exactly. And Planet of the Apes, I wouldn't say that that's artless either. I don't think any of them. I mean, I haven't seen the Tim Burton one, and I haven't seen the fifth of the main series, but I don't think any of them are artless. I don't know that there is an artless movie, to be honest.
Yeah, just some are executed better than others, but it's all about what are you going for, and did you achieve it? You have to grade them on a scale. Like, you can't really treat movies in terms of, because it's sort of like school. Like, I'm not like all like hippie, like anti-school or whatever, but it's kind of like standardized testing in a way, where you have this group full of individuals who all have different strengths and weaknesses and goals, but you put them all through this uniform, test, basically. Which, I'm not against standardized testing. I know there are people out there who are like, no, standardized test. You have to judge people by some kind of, standard.
Sure.
But what you learn in school is that half that stuff that you're expected to know won't apply to what you want to do with your life. And then you develop your skills and your strengths outside of that kind of structure in a way. Structure's good, but like you won't really find yourself within structure. So you have to treat movies that way, where you can't judge them all by the same set of rules. Essentially, like did it wow me? And just like, well, a freaking what's a movie with people just talking?
Like The Social Network.
Sure, The Social Network has terrible action.
Yeah.
Okay, it's not an action movie. We weren't trying to do that. It's just like you sort of just judge them like, what, even Transformers, like, does it entertain me? Yes. What's my biggest complaint? Length. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's legitimate criticism of an action movie. Like, it needs to be paced well. But, like, judging a film that's not trying to do good action on how terrible it's and how boring it was, it's just like, well, obviously you didn't want to watch a movie with lots of dialogue. You wanted to see an action movie. Go rent Commando or something.
Right. And I mean, every movie's different, and even the bad movies, like if I think about something like M. Night's Last Airbender or something, like there were people on that who worked really hard. There were people on that who did some really creative work and tried to make it something that was great.
Everyone except him.
Yeah, everyone except the director. So it didn't work, and the actors. The actors didn't work also. But basically, there were people that tried to do something great, and there always are in any group of people. You just have to kind of judge, each movie on a case-by-case basis. That movie's bad for a number of reasons, but I can't really call out and say like, oh, well, the makeup was terrible, because I mean it was fine. You know what I mean? There were people that did their job. In other words. I think the main criticism that I could give, across the board these days sometimes is that movies feel watered down in terms of who they're for. Like, for instance, the Transformers movies. I know we're picking on them a little bit, but whatever.
Yeah.
So the Transformers movies, to me, could be really, really great if they didn't try to market them to every country in the world and translate them into as many languages as they do. In order to do that, in order to make it acceptable to all these countries in all these languages, you've got to kind of water some stuff down. And so I guess that would be the main complaint across the board for things these days. But even that I wouldn't say artless, because the people that animate the gigantic robots are phenomenal. I mean, you can't complain about that.
Yeah, what are they trying to achieve? Are they trying to achieve complex, concrete, robot aliens? Yes.
Right.
And how did they do? A+.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
Cool, okay.
I mean, but again, that's going to be subjective.
91.
So, right. So it's all up to each individual person and judging each movie on a case by case basis, because there are going to be people out there like John who, I'm not picking on John. I'm just saying there are. John's going to love the Transformers movies because he's a Transformers fan. Likewise, pretty much anything with Batman in it, I'm going to be able to enjoy. So everyone's got their own thing. So for me, film criticism is more about critiquing the intentions and the way that everything finished product is in regards to what it was trying to be.
Yeah.
And everything else is subjective. Oh, I didn't like this character, or I did like that character. It's all going to be different, because if I go see, The Social Network, and Andrew Garfield looks too much like a guy I grew up with, and I hate that guy, then I'm going to hate Andrew Garfield. It's all, you know what I'm saying? It's all subjective, and so, but that's not film criticism. So these things like CinemaSins on YouTube,
yeah. Oh God, I hate CinemaSins.
All it is, they're interesting videos, and yes, I watch them.
It's so narcissistic. It's like, you know everything that has to be done in a movie. Why aren't you a billionaire then with films?
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Why is Steven Spielberg begging to make your films? Maybe it's because you're an idiot.
And every now and then they'll make a good point, like, well, why this if not this? Yeah. But most of their stuff is what film criticism is these days. It's what the internet has created film criticism to be, which is, this one shot was stupid because of, some nitpicky little thing, like, the Burger King logo is too big on the cup, so it's product placement and I hate it. It's like, shut up. The movie had to be funded by somebody, and Burger King said, I'll give you money if you put a thing in the thing. I would do it too.
Oh, yeah. There's a shot in Transformers 4, apparently, where they crashed into, a Bud Light truck. And someone got pissed off because Mark Wahlberg, picks one up and drinks it, just takes a sip from it. Everyone gets pissed off, but I think Adam Carolla was pointing out, actually, you do get more money. You get the money if you display it, but you get more if you have them consume some of it.
Right.
And so it's just
sure,
is it really going to take you out of the movie that much?
No.
It's a joke. Hey, if I ran into a big truck full of beer, and I'd just think, I'll take a sip, but then I need to keep running. It's not the worst thing.
No. It may be a little on the nose, but who cares?
It
doesn't
give a
matter.
Shit.
Yeah, it's like everyone that complained about Man of Steel, and they're like, they fight in an IHOP, and I'm like, well, they got a lot of money.
They're not going to fight in a generic mart. You can't.
Yeah.
What I hate more than product placement is seeing characters eating genericos, or I hate it. Oh my God, Dustin, I hate it when I'm watching TV and they're drinking beers and all the labels are turned away from the camera because they don't want to pay for them. I'm like, what are you drinking? Tell me, what are you drinking?
Yeah. Or you see, every SCAD student short film had if it was in a grocery store or whatever, all had the bags flipped around.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Stuff like that.
That takes me out of it more, because it's just all that tells me is that you're cheap. This movie was made for cheap, and I shouldn't expect much more spectacle from it. So when I see them at a Walmart, I'm like, oh sweet, they're at Walmart. I shop at Walmart. People shop at Walmart. This is a real world. I don't think they got paid by Walmart. Of course they got paid by Walmart.
Yeah,
of course.
And nobody's...
It's
business.
Exactly. It is a business.
And whoever complained every time Aston Martin paid to be in a Bond movie? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nobody complains about it. It's it's just stupid.
And to anybody who listens to us, which good for you, I guess. Sure. You must not have a lot to do, man.
I know, right? Get a job.
But I mean, if you're gonna, hey, I'm a telemarketer, okay? All right. You could argue well then how informed are Dustin and I? We don't offer anything more than our opinions.
Yeah.
I'm not pretending to be Roger Ebert over here.
No.
I'm just me. And what expertise do I have? Common sense and a point of view, and the admission.
And we've seen a lot of movies.
Yeah, and the ability to not make a blanket statement about something.
Yeah.
I mean,
right.
And what we're talking about is people who talk about certain things as if they're absolutes in a completely subjective art form.
Yeah, and another thing, yeah, exactly. I hate that, and I also hate the people that pick on. I don't know, maybe this has always existed, but the internet just brings it out more. Is everyone jumps on one thing? Mm-hmm. So again, let's use Man of Steel. Everyone's like, the destruction of the city, blah, 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 and everyone's going nuts over all the destruction. And I'm like, but that's not a valid film. That's not film criticism. You're just saying man, there's a lot of destruction. I didn't know there would be that much.
Because they try to make it like, if this really happened, so you like destruction? It's an endless rabbit hole of people trying to trap you into a statement. It's like if you're arguing with somebody who they're trying to turn around every single thing you say. It's just like too much, hey, I'm fine with the destruction. Oh, so you like destruction? Well, no, that's not what I said. I'm just saying, no. Wait, stop right there. You like destruction. No. And all of a sudden I'm on, crossfire. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
I didn't say that.
And see, the thing about that is like if it were film criticism, it would be something like this. Doesn't the destruction of Metropolis in Man of Steel negate the fact that they're trying to set him up as a symbol of hope? That would be a valid film criticism if that's what they were trying to do. Yeah. And I feel like they touched on that, and maybe people thought, S means hope, Superman means hope. That's what they're going to do. But that's not what they tried to do, because it's not like at the end of the movie, Superman's flying in the middle of the city and everyone's cheering. You know what I mean? It was completely... the movie ends with him crying.
Yeah.
It's completely trying to do something that they didn't expect. Exactly.
They didn't treat it lightly. They treated it like what would happen.
Right. And yes, then after he cries, there is a time jump. We don't know how much time passed. I hate when people are like, and then like the next day he goes to work and everyone's fine.
Oh,
I'm like,
yeah, you were there.
I'm like, yeah, because clearly that's the next day. Exactly. It's like, what makes you even possibly think that could be the next day?
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I will say, yes, there's a lot of destruction, but I'll also say, no, it doesn't bother me, because if you actually go back and rewatch that movie without the intention of picking it apart, you'll realize that Superman is not in control of that fight.
No.
And really, there's like two things that he does that causes damage, that he directly does that causes damage, and neither of them are life-threatening to anybody, except Zod, I guess.
It's so weird how everyone misses that. Like, that flies completely under the radar for everyone. And I think that they see it and it hurts their argument, so they just think, oh, well, I won't bring this up. Yeah, it's just like, no. Like,
and I know this is sort of turning into me defending Man of Steel yet again, but that's just the most recent example I can think of where everyone just kind of unanimously harps on one thing. Mm-hmm. I could do the same thing about The Hobbit, but, there again, I like The Hobbit too, and you have to keep in mind, again, what are they trying to do? And I judge it on a case-by-case basis. And, going back to the argument, John likes Transformers because he's a Transformers fan. I like The Hobbit because I'm a Hobbit fan. Mm-hmm. Get over it. I'm going to be able to take it more. And it doesn't make me any less of a film critic to enjoy something that you don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I hate that argument, too, where people are like, oh, you should hate this. And if you don't, you're not a good film critic. It's like, no, that's stupid.
Yeah, there's a difference between, just offering an opinion and admitting the place it's coming from, and pretending that you know everything and therefore you're right. Like, Ebert was very well read and had he was intelligent. He had lots of literature under his belt, and he knew how to pick apart storytelling. That's how that's what the best film critics do, is they study storytelling and effective storytelling. And another thing that film critics do is they judge a movie based on its target. They don't they judge them based on what they're going for. Mm-hmm.
That's why Ebert liked Star Wars when it came out when nobody else did.
This isn't
because he knew what it was.
This isn't sports where it's like, well, he's only trying to throw a 10-yard pass, and he did, so A+. Well, the other guy can throw a 60-yard pass, but he only throws a 50-yard pass, B-. It's like, no, the other guy's clearly a better quarterback. He should start. Sports is a meritocracy. And frankly, everything should be a meritocracy, but you don't treat movies like that. It's like you treat them based on what they're going for. It is, it's whatever.
It's true. No, I agree. To me, film criticism is a synopsis of plot, followed by a selection of points about each film. It's going to be different depending on each film.
Yeah.
Like Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I'm going to talk about motion capture, but I'm not going to talk about that in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 it's going to be a different thing that I'm going to be talking about.
I try to keep in mind what audiences expect, and at least what I expected.
Right, exactly. And then you talk about whether or not that works for you as an opinion subjectively.
Yeah.
And there you go.
I mean, we're not going to put a disclaimer at the beginning of every episode and say, the views expressed in this podcast are solely those of Dustin and Mr. Hooper.
Yeah, that's
They
stupid.
do not represent the views of Hooper Industries Incorporated or Time Warner, who does not own us. I will have to disclaim that.
Yes.
But you know what I mean? Like, it's like, obviously this is our opinion. Like, that should go, I shouldn't have to say, in my opinion, IMO, bro. IMO, bro.
IMO. IMHO.
IMO, bro. Yeah. Yeah, IMHO. IMFO. Info. Okay, anyway. What is The Fault in Our Stars, Dustin? Is that Shailene Woodley movie?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
The Fault in Our Stars is about a girl named Hazel.
Which Hazel?
Has cancer.
Oh.
And is, as she puts it, dying, in the process of dying. And she goes to a support group because her parents think she's depressed. And so she goes to this group at this church and meets a guy who recently beat cancer. And they begin a little bit of a romance. And so that's the movie at its most basic.
Okay.
The romance is the main story. And then, of course, there's a little story here where Hazel has a favorite author, and she gets this guy to read this book, and they both like the author, and they write him a letter asking him questions about what happens after the book is over, and he agrees to meet with them if they ever were to make it to Amsterdam, where he lives. So the subplot here being they try to get to Amsterdam. So that's sort of the story of The Fault in Our Stars. It's a romantic comedy at its heart, but it kind of has this, indie style, like irreverent snark to it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like, yeah, both.
Yeah, we went the other way.
Yeah, like a little bit of a hipsterism, but
like
at
death
the same
is
time,
just whatever, man.
Yeah, whatever, man.
It's like, okay, what does that mean?
They have conversations about religion and all that kind of stuff. Like you do in a hipster flick.
Right. Yeah.
But
everyone thinks they're Frederick fucking Nietzsche. Sorry.
But it's pretty palatable. It's not. It doesn't beat you over the head with its indiness or its romantic comediness, and it's pretty palatable for just about anybody. Here's what I'll say about it. The actors are charming. Everybody does their job, and they do it well. Shailene Woodley, I have such mixed feelings about her. This honestly is the only movie I've ever seen her in. Mm-hmm. I don't know quite how I feel about her. She does a really good job in this movie, don't get me wrong. I've heard the name so many times, and I'm not sure that I understand why I've heard her name so many times.
Yeah, it's weird. That's another thing, a trend I noticed in Hollywood is sometimes just like people are just famous because they want them to be famous.
Because they are, yeah.
It's just like Shailene Woodley's not a bad actress, but like everything I've seen her in is just like, okay, I mean, she's not bad. It's just why all of a sudden is she like it?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm getting at. She's not bad, and she's certainly watchable, and she certainly deserves some sort of accolade for this performance. Anyway, yeah, I just don't understand the big deal. But I've never seen Divergent, and I didn't see what was the big one that she was in a few years ago?
The Descendants.
The Descendants, yeah. I haven't seen that.
She was good in The Descendants. I mean, she's a good actress, but she's not. I mean,
Here's what I'll say about it. I feel like it loses its voice a little bit in a few certain scenes. When you watch it, you'll probably pick them up. It has a very distinct tone, and then it kind of goes dark in a couple places that it seems out of place. And I don't think it's much of a spoiler to say that structure-wise, it's a little strange because the subplot with them trying to get to Amsterdam is wrapped up before Act 3. And they introduce a new subplot for the entirety of Act 3. So it's a really strange way of doing it, and it feels kind of episodic and disjointed. Mm-hmm. I mean, both of the plots, the Amsterdam plot and the second plot, have to do with the main through line, which is the romance, right? But just to break it up like that is kind of strange to me, and it does feel a little disjointed, because when the first subplot of getting to Amsterdam wraps up, you feel like, okay, there's probably like a good 10 or 15 minutes longer of this movie, and then when it turns out there's 30 or 45, it's like, whoa, hold on, why is there this much? So I'll say the last act seems to drag a little bit, and that's pretty much just due to the structure of the movie. It's a good movie. It's a little depressing. It's a movie about people with cancer. It's going to be a little depressing, but it's got some funny parts, and like I said, everyone does a good job. So this is probably a 7.5 or so out of 10. Mm-hmm. I feel weird about going any higher, because it's not one that you'll rewatch a lot, and that's a big one for me when I'm judging movies. How am I going to rewatch this ever?
Right.
And I could see rewatching this once, but it's not one that I'm really going to buy on Blu-ray. It's not one that I'm going to say, oh man, I'm really in the mood to be depressed. So
I'll just look at my checkbook if I need that.
Yeah. That's so true. But yeah, you know what I mean. It's a good movie. It's just not one that you're going to rewatch over and over, and it's really not one that you're going to have a whole lot of fun with. But you are going to enjoy it, if that makes any sense. It's well done, and it certainly achieves what it wants to achieve. It's just the problems lie in the structure of the thing, and really the last act kind of dragging. But apart from that, I will say this too: Willem Dafoe plays a small role in the movie.
Ooh, I like Willem Dafoe.
I do too. And I had no clue he was in it. So when I hear his voice, I'm like, oh, snap, Osborn's here.
Can Spider-Man come out to play?
Yeah, I like his role. It's a little predictable and at the same time unbelievable. And as always, I kind of just wish Willem Dafoe would, like when they introduced Willem Dafoe, just let him be the main character from there on out. Like, just follow him, because he's cool. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it, but again, it's not going to be one that I'm going to rewatch a lot, so that's going to knock it down a few points. But it is a good movie.
Well, that's good.
And when it comes on, when it comes on Redbox, it's a good little date night movie, or even just kind of a somber little, I want something serious movie.
Okay. Well, I just remembered a movie I saw.
Okay, great. Hit me.
Okay, so Mrs. Hooper and I watched The Delivery Man with Vince Vaughn.
Oh, yeah. That's the one where he has all the kids, correct?
He donated sperm like 20 years ago, and there was something went wrong at the lab at the time to where they didn't have any other sperm except his, so they just gave his to like all the women.
Yeah.
And so he's got like 533 kids, and this is all in New York City. Wow. And like 130-something of them want to know who he is. Mm-hmm. This is interesting because I expected this movie to be a comedy, because that's how it was marketed. Right. And the funniest things in it are everything said by Chris Pratt, who plays his best friend / disbarred attorney. And now I know why, because I'm like, this is a Vince Vaughn film. He's not like unfunny. I can tell like he's not playing a comedic character. He's playing the straight man. He got like his girlfriend pregnant. And so he's just like, I actually want this. Like, I want to be a father. And so he gets, I can't remember how, he gets like the folder that has all his biological kids in them. Mm-hmm. And he starts like kind of stalking them. Just to learn, just to know who they are. Like he meets them without, saying, hey, I'm your dad. And he starts to get like this profound connection to a lot of them. You're basically watching a guy be a father to these lost kids, basically. I liked this film. I liked it just as a straight up like, oh, it's a feel good film, and right, sure. Kind of about finding family and defining family, and these kids who all want to know where they came from, and finding, and they set up like this support group where they all know that they all came from the same sperm donor, And so they go there to like talk about how much they want to meet him and stuff. I mean, I will say this: it was kind of a generic arc, like, oh, he grows up, kind of. He throws away his pot plants, and he, blah blah blah. He commits and stuff. There's that. There's some plot holes, like eventually, he countersues like the sperm clinic because he's like, I have a right to privacy, and he needs money because he borrowed like from a loan shark or something, also generic. But of course the lawsuit conflicts with like what he wants to do, which is tell the kids who he is, but he's suing so he can protect his identity, and there's conflict there because he wins the lawsuit, because obviously if you sign an agreement saying, hey, I'm going to be anonymous, then they can't reveal your identity to your donated kids. So he wins the lawsuit, but then when he says, like, I want them to know who I am, he asks Chris Pratt, like, but by doing that, won't I sort of negate the lawsuit? Like, won't I give up the money, basically? And he's like, yeah. And I thought, no, you wouldn't, because you're choosing to reveal your identity. You won't lose the money at all. And then they never addressed that. And I was just like, they're trying to make it seem like he cares more about them than the money, which is fine, except you can't pretend like he would lose the money. He still wins it was always his choice. I don't know. It was just weird. I was just like, oh, so there's a couple of manufactured. Again, it reminded me of scripts that we saw in school where the story's not that bad. It's just something like that where someone would raise their hand and say, why would he lose the money? And they can't really explain it. They're just like, there would even be kids who admit, like, I just needed more conflict. It's like, that's fine if your conflict is based in reality. But in a real lawsuit, he would not lose the money. Like,
exactly.
The punitive damage, you know what I mean? Like, he wouldn't. So, I don't know. Just a few plot holes like that I didn't get fixated on that much. But I was just sort of like, I was a little lazy to just sort of gloss over that. Again, it's not really a comedy, so it's not, you can't let skate on like absurdist points, and you can't, it doesn't really hurt the way the movie made you feel, but it's just like that's like a logic error, and those annoy me, especially when you're doing it to further like this conflict that wouldn't be there in real life, basically. Anyway, The Delivery Man was it was a nice little movie. We red boxed it, so sweet film.
Awesome. And you've got another one, right?
I do. I've got it's a documentary called I Know That Voice.
I'm really interested in this.
This came out this year. It's a documentary. I didn't even know who Lawrence Shapiro is or was. He's a director, but I knew about this because of John DiMaggio, who is a well-known voice actor. You may know him as like Bender on Futurama, and he voices a lot of characters, as do everyone who appears in this film. But he's the executive producer, and it's pretty much just what do you want to know about the voice acting industry? There's a lot of people in here, like we all know about Kevin Michael Richardson, Billy West, Maurice LaMarche, Rob Paulson, Mark Hamill is in this, D. Bradley Baker, a lot of June Foray, a lot of people, Tara Strong, E.G. Daly, and if you don't know any of those people who I'm talking about, Tommy Pickle, Tom Kenny's in this, like just so many people that as soon, the whole point is you watch it and you're like, oh, that's the guy who does SpongeBob, and that's Tommy Pickles. And if you're like me and Dustin, who are complete geeks about this industry, then you really want to see this, because it's all about how these people go. Jim Cummings is in this. My God.
I love that guy.
Oh, man. And, and of course, it's something they all talk about how they got into the industry and how they landed their big audition, when they got their big break. And of course, at some point, they all do their voices and, talk about, it's just, it's great. And it's just a fun little watch. I've already watched it twice. I enjoyed it that much. And there's not much else to say. I mean, it's well paced. It's super interesting, and it's of course entertaining, because these are, especially if you watch cartoons as a kid. Unless you're like 5 years old and you don't know who any of these characters are, okay, you won't enjoy it. If you're 90 years old and you haven't watched cartoons since the 40s, then okay, you won't enjoy this, because there's none of that either, except for maybe Rocky and Bullwinkle. But if you're between the ages of 5 and 90, you might like this, because these are characters you know. and you're familiar with, and these are the stories of how these people came to voice them. There's old newsreel of Mel Blanc in here that no one else has because his son contributed it to this documentary. It is some interesting stuff.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Now, where did you see this? It's not on Netflix.
I thought it was, but I have no idea though. I saw this on Amazon Prime, Amazon Instant Video. I thought that it was on other outlets. I'm not sure if it's on Hulu Plus or you said it's not on Netflix. Anyway, it's great. I mean, if anything, just go on Amazon and pay the $3 to rent it. It's worth your money. You'll be glad you watched it. It's great. Good little documentary.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah. Let's move on because we're going a little longer than I think we intended to for this episode, but
yeah,
we should talk about this. Which one of these you want to start with, or you just want to say them all at once and talk about them all?
We might as well
because these are all just a bunch of changes.
Yeah.
Dustin, what changes do we see in the Marvel comic universe?
Well, really, I have 3 of them on the list. The third one's not really all that important, really. But
okay.
But the first 2 are. So, I believe it starts later this year, like in the fall sometime. Thor in the Marvel Universe will now be a woman, and Captain America will be it'll be Falcon or Sam Wilson wearing the Captain America suit, so he'll be Captain America now. So these are the 2 big changes. Let me just preface this story a little bit with this. What drives me crazy about the comic book industry and keeps me from really being supportive of it these days is that it seeks headlines more than it seeks to tell stories anymore. And I'll give you 3 examples, one of which is on this list. So recently, DC Comics, I believe back in 2011, relaunched their entire line of comics. They branded it the New 52. It would keep some of the stories from before that point going. Some of them happened, but some of them did not happen. They were kind of vague about which happened and which didn't, and it was really kind of a janky little reboot to get publicity. But since that reboot happened, for those of you who are familiar, The Flash, there are several Flashes. And a long time ago, they killed off the main Flash, Barry Allen, and he had been dead for years and years. He had been replaced by Wally West, and then once Wally became unable, then it went to Bart Allen, a relative of Barry, and so the Flash is kind of a family thing. And Wally had been the Flash, and then Bart, and then once they rebooted, they went back to Barry. Brought him back, but there was no mention of Wally until a recent issue. And in this recent issue, they revealed that Wally, who before had been not only a relative of Barry Allen, but also he was a Caucasian male, and his distinguishing trait was his fiery red hair, and that's who he was. And then now post relaunch. He is now half African American, which doesn't bother me. I have no problem with a character who is not white. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is I don't like change to get headlines. I don't like change that doesn't make sense.
I don't like change for something that should be staying the same. If you want to make, if you don't want to make any more Caucasian heroes in comic books for the end of time, I don't care. But I don't like you changing the pre-existing ones that are, that with small variations, apparently, look the same. Right. It's just like we're gonna make the Flash mixed now to represent more people. Why don't you just make a new Flash who,
he's already
Wally
a character.
West have to be a mixed guy. Wally West is a ginger,
Right. Exactly. I want everything to take place story-wise. Like, I should be so involved in the story that everything flows naturally. So for there to be a change like that, it doesn't make sense for that change to happen or to evolve, and it doesn't add anything new to the character. So for me, that's a good example of what I'm talking about, which is the stories don't matter, it's the headlines. The second example, very recently, Archie Comics, I believe in April, announced they were going to kill Archie. I don't know why they have to do this. I think Archie is not an X-Men character.
Do you know how they did it, by the way?
Yes, I do. That's what I'm going to talk about. So basically, he's not an X-Men character. He doesn't have to die. His story it's not an action world. It's just a world. So killing off a character is weird, especially when you know they're going to bring him back. Mm-hmm. That would be like if Marvel had a character named Marvel. They're not going to kill him off for very long. Just like Archie's not going to kill off Archie for very long. And then how they're going to explain or justify bringing Archie back in a world that's a real world, I don't understand. But anyway, so they announced that Archie's going to die. That's obviously just a publicity stunt. They just want the headlines. But anyway, so they announced a couple days ago that Archie is going to die, or they announced how he's going to die. He's going to die saving... I don't read Archie comics enough.
He's like a senator or something.
Okay, I don't know. I really don't know. But anyway, there's a gay character, and Archie's going to take a bullet for this character.
Yeah.
Which, again... If that was the story, I would be fine with it. But the fact is, they announced how it's going to happen before you read the book. That tells me the story doesn't matter, the headlines do. Which
also, I heard also, Dustin, that the senator was like going to be speaking on like gay rights and gun control. Oh, whatever. It's just I don't like. And it's for a cause too. Why would Archie be involved or even near an assassination attempt?
Well, yeah, that's true.
This is so stupid.
Why is there an assassin? Like I said, Archie is not...
He's not an action hero. He's not John McClane.
Exactly. It's not a world where there should even be guns. Like, for me, I've never read an Archie comic in my entire life. But I will say, it seems to me that the extent of, like, tragedy in that world would be like somebody's 1950s Chevy Bel Air ran off the road. And they got a broken leg.
I have read Archie comics, and nothing happens in Archie comics except like, I'm nervous about, I double booked a date. I told Veronica I'd be going out, but I'm out with Betty that night. I'll just take them both. What could happen? And it's just like, hey, Archie, why is she here? Why is she here? Well, let's try to make this work. No. It's like...
Yeah.
There's no, like, oh my God, they're going to kill him. Hurry, I'm going to run in front of the bullet. None of that.
It's just headlines. So now let's go back to Marvel. Marvel has announced these changes that are happening purely to get headlines. I don't have a problem with Falcon taking over as Captain America. The reason is because that's an already established character, and we've already established that Captain America can be other people other than just Steve.
With the Winter Soldier.
Right. Bucky took over as Cap once Cap died at one point. Now that Steve Rogers, I believe what's happened in the comics to cause this to happen is somebody took the super soldier serum from Steve's blood. And so he's starting to feel the effects of his age. So he can no longer be Captain America. So it makes sense for somebody to take over, and it also makes sense for it to be Falcon. Right. I have no problem with this. The problem that I'm having, the issue that it raises for me, is that it's just going to be for headlines. And everything, and everything's going to go back to normal in a year.
Yeah, it's going to be temporary because he'll get it back and he'll de-age and he'll be like, well, thanks for holding on to that for me, but I'm Captain America now and you're just Falcon again.
Yeah, go back to Falcon.
Yeah,
and that's fine if that's the story, the way that the story plays out. That's fine. But the fact that you have to announce it means you don't actually care about the story. You just care about getting people to buy your books again.
Yeah,
and so I don't like that. Now the other one bothers me way more. This is Thor is now a woman. Now I understand that comics need strong female characters. I understand that.
Then they do. Draw some.
Exactly. They do. They need strong female characters because
a pen can draw anything.
Exactly.
They can draw 10 women.
But keep in mind, Thor already has Sif. If they gave Sif her own title...
Oh, my God.
I would be so for it. I would be like,
the thing is, for what they wanted to achieve, they could have just had Sif be worthy of holding the Mjolnir, just holding a hammer.
Exactly.
Why does that... She's named Thor, so now a woman is the god of thunder?
Yes.
She's the goddess of thunder?
Yes.
Like, it's trite. It's just you don't want to give up on the brand recognition of Thor. It is a huge gimmick.
You're exactly right. See, the thing about Thor is it's whoever's worthy to hold the hammer. So all you have to do is pull a Captain America here and say, for one reason or another, Thor is going to, not be worthy for X amount of time.
Yeah.
And Sif is going to take over.
Dude,
and I would be,
point,
okay, great. We get to flesh out Sif's character. We get to give her more to do.
Yeah.
She's strong. She's already there. She's already established. Great.
Here's the thing, too. Captain America has held Mjolnir before. He was worthy. Yeah. Was he Thor? No. He was just Captain America. Oh, I can use the hammer now.
Exactly. And
so
the other
why wasn't he named Thor if he has Mjolnir? Why wasn't Odin named Thor when he had Mjolnir?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
But see, the thing is, this isn't just about changing Green Lantern rings or whatever. Yeah. This is a full change. And the other thing that bothers me about this is not just that it's an announcement, so you get the headlines. It's not just that there's already a female Thor essentially, and they're just letting her go. What bothers me here too is that there's no story precedent. It's not like from issue to issue there's going to be a story where Thor becomes a woman. So it has nothing to do with the story. It's just a completely different thing. It's like an aside. It's as if the Thor comics are going, and then they're like, okay, but hold on, let me give you this what if for a year or 2 years or however long it lasts, and then we'll go right back to the way that it is. And that's stupid. And then let me also throw this in there. I'm a big sucker for brand recognition, brand continuity, and I believe if you have Chris Hemsworth playing Thor in the comics ought to be Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah.
Does that make sense to me?
No, I understand. Yeah.
In other words, if a kid loves the Thor movies, they should be able to go pick up a comic and read the character they love, and be able to understand who everybody is. That's one of the reasons I think Lex Luthor ought to be bald, because a kid ought to be able to go see Batman, Superman, see bald Lex Luthor, read the comics, and understand who that character is immediately because of the bald head.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I think things ought to be like. So this kind of hits all my points of this sucks. But I will say it's a good idea to have more strong female characters. That's not what I'm against.
Oh, yeah.
What I'm against is changing a character for the sake of headlines, changing a character for the sake of what essentially is just to get people talking.
Also, you're taking a moral high ground because it's just like, oh, look at us, we love women, we stand for women's, whatever. It's just like, look, we have more racially diverse characters, we have more female characters. It's just like, good for you.
Oh, good for you.
It's just like, that doesn't mean shit to me. It just means you're a fucking sellout. Essentially, you're a sellout to get a social and moral high ground, which you're kind of compromising your established characters. And if you think I'm a racist or a sexist, I probably hate you. I don't want to be your friend. That's
the argument. Everyone's like, oh, well, if you don't like this, then you're obviously a bigot. Yeah. And it's like, no, I don't like how we just change who these characters are at the drop of a hat so that we can be accepted by people. You know what I mean? We're at the whims of society. It's just like, wouldn't it be great if there were more female characters? Hell, let's just give Thor a sex change. Let's just cut off his wiener and give him, and it's a woman now. The way to do this would have been, if you wanted to do this, you reboot or do an alternate universe where Thor was born a woman. That's what they're doing. That's what this is.
Okay, but is this alternate, or is this going to be you know what I mean? It's just,
this is an alternate, but it's the new
main
standard.
Yeah.
You're not going to be able to go buy a male Thor comic. The only thing on store shelves will be female Thor comics.
It's just it's going to confuse people who research the actual God of Thunder.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it's like when they do the Batman Beyond comics, it's an alternate. It's not actually the established continuity. It's an alternate, but you can still go pick out a normal Bruce Wayne Batman comic.
Right. It's not like you're saying Bruce Wayne was never Batman.
Right, exactly. So anyway, that's sort of where I'm at on this. I also worry that it has a negative effect in that...
That's just me trying to meet them in the middle, by the way. I'm just thinking, well, if you wanted to do this, here's what it would be, but it doesn't mean it works.
Right. I think for me, the thing is, I understand the intention here is equality. The intention here is that everyone is...
equally represented, as if it mattered to be equally represented in comic books. Who gives a shit?
Well, but see, my thing is, I feel like it has the potential of doing the opposite, which is tell kids that the only heroes you can look up to are the ones that are the same age, sex, race that you are.
Yeah.
And I don't think that that's a good message to send, because, I mean, if I had a son, my son comes to me and I say, who's your favorite character? Who's your favorite superhero? And he says the Jon Stewart Green Lantern, then holy cow, I'm excited because, you know what I mean? He can look up to that character, and he's black, but my son would be white, and that's not a problem for me. Frankly, he should look up to Jon Stewart, because Jon Stewart is an ex-serviceman.
He's a leader.
He's a leader. He's smart. Like I said, he put his life on the line in the Marine Corps, and then all of a sudden he gets drafted into the biggest Marine Corps in the entire universe.
And frankly, I wish they had the perfect opportunity to do the Jon Stewart Green Lantern, because one, it hasn't been done before, and two, it would shut everyone up about diversity.
Yeah,
make him black, sure, because he's black in the comics. Like, that's a perfect opportunity to give them what they want and give me a character who I'm interested in.
And that also made sense, because they didn't just go say, okay, now Hal Jordan's black.
Yeah.
They went and said, okay, well, this makes perfect sense.
There's a black guy named Jon Stewart who we're going to make the Green Lantern. Okay.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense to create a new character around this thing that multiple people are going to be. There are multiple Green Lanterns. Mm-hmm. You know, one of them's going to be black. That's fine. I think now there's like a Muslim one named Simon Baz or something.
Yeah, I don't care. As long
and
as
that's fine too.
Name.
That's great. That's awesome. It's a new character. It's a different character. I have no problem with, if you look at the Blue Beetle. The Blue Beetle in the 70s and the 80s, his name was Ted Cord. He was just, some white dude. But the thing is, the beetle is a scarab that attaches to it's an alien life form. It attaches to the person's spine, and now there's a Hispanic guy wearing it, and that's awesome because it's a brand new character,
right?
And it also gives Hispanic kids someone to look up to. But the fact is, they don't have to be the same race as you for you to look up to them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It almost feels like it's going to have a negative effect and say, if you're a little girl, don't you dare read a Thor comic unless it's a female Thor.
Yeah. It's just
that's stupid.
It's the worst message to stick to your own kind. It's
yes, that's exactly what it is.
I can laugh at Eddie Murphy jokes. So should I stop doing that because I'm white? Doesn't that make you the racist for asserting I can't think he's funny?
Right, or that a little girl can't
the color
identify
of my skin.
with Thor.
Yeah,
so
I can't laugh at Aisha Tyler's jokes because of the color of my skin and my genitalia. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, okay,
so it's
you're right. I'm the racist, not you.
Right. See, and people will line up for days to buy these comics, I'm sure, and people will talk about them for a time, but the fact is it's going to peter out, and they're going to change everything back to what they are. Yes. And they're going to change everything back to the way that they are, and the way that they should be. And
they'll wait for the next gimmicky thing to do, and then they'll do that.
Right. I would love to talk to Stan Lee right now and get his opinion, because this is a character that he created with Jack Kirby. Yeah. And to see it, to see this happen to it, like you said, if this was like a one-shot graphic novel, like if there was a writer who was like, I want to write a story about a female Thor, and Marvel's like, okay, cool, we'll give you a one-shot graphic novel, or we'll put out a limited series.
Like Superman Red Sun.
Exactly.
Where he all of a sudden his ship went down in Russia instead of America. It's like a what if.
Mark Millar was like, I want to know what if.
Yeah.
And you could still go out and buy the American Superman comics. It's just this was an aside, and that's great. And there's Gotham by Gaslight, which is like a steampunky, Gotham. There's Spider-Man Noir, where it's all film noir 1930s ish, and all of that stuff is so cool. There's Spider-Man 2099. There's Batman Beyond. But the fact is, the fact that this is not an aside, this is taking over. That would be like if DC Comics announced suddenly that Wonder Woman is now a dude.
Yeah.
For no apparent reason. And it makes about as much sense, because Wonder Woman being a dude makes no sense, because she lives on an island of women. So you have to either change everybody or... You know what I mean? It makes no sense.
Oh, man. Can you imagine, Themyscira is now an island full of dudes? There'd be so many gay jokes. So a bunch of dudes living on an island together? That's kind of weird. And instead of Diana, he's just Dan.
Dan. Yeah. Hi, I'm Dan. I'm Wonder Man.
I'm Dan. I'm Dan the Wonder Man.
I'm Dan the Wonder Man. Hera, help me.
Oh my God! It's Herman though. It's not Hera.
Herman.
Oh man.
Anyway,
Dan the Wonder Man.
I think the point we're making here
is
that we neither of us have a problem with minorities being represented in comics, and we both actually encourage that. What we don't like is for things that are to change for no reason other than headline.
If you want to represent a minority well, give them the dignity of their own title.
Right. And it's also kind of a slap in the face to be like, hey, women, we like you. We're going to make Thor a woman. And then a year later to be like, no, he's a man again.
Yeah, give them the dignity of their own continuity, their opportunity to tell their own story from an original standpoint. Like,
right.
Why? I don't know.
And like I said, why can't Sif just be the Thor?
Yeah.
Why didn't you explore her character?
Yeah.
You had a perfect opportunity. The fact is they just wanted the name recognition because if it was Sif getting her own series, they couldn't announce it on The View. Which, by the way, that's where they announced this. Which to me seems a little condescending or something.
Well,
like, we want women to hear this. Where can we go?
Right.
Just The View.
It's like the audience of The View aren't comic book fans.
They don't care.
They're people who, frankly, either they work shift work or they don't have jobs, because while The View's on, most people are at work.
The whole thing is messed up. Well, the Thor thing is messed up. I mean, the Captain America thing kind of makes sense. I mean,
at least they're not saying now Steve Rogers is this. Like, they're not changing Steve Rogers. They're changing the mantle of Captain America. I have a problem with real quick. I don't want to talk too much more about this because I think we've made our point. But there's a list of superheroes that I've divided them. And people I'm okay with being changed. People I'm not okay with being changed. Who they are, I don't like being changed. Like Superman, by the way, is Clark Kent's actual identity, Kal-El. Superman can't be anybody. You can't make anyone else into Superman. That's who he is. Batman is. I'm not going to say he's interchangeable, but if you do it right, and you do treat the Batman as a symbol, then other people can be him, but you can't change
Robin
Bruce
or
Wayne.
Terry McGinnis.
Yeah, you cannot change Bruce Wayne because they've done it in the comics too. Other people have been Batman before. Yeah. So obviously the Green Lantern's okay because Green Lantern is just a title. You are a Green Lantern. He's referred to as the Green Lantern because he's, that's what the Earth refers to him as because that's his superhero title. But being a Green Lantern, you're one of many Green Lanterns. You're one of thousands of Green Lanterns.
And same with the Flash. I mean, there are several Flashes.
Yeah.
But
you're not just
if they had created a new character, I would be like, oh, sweet.
Now, I have a problem with the Spider-Man change, the Miles Morales. Like, what are the odds that another dude, gets bitten by the spider? Like, I don't like that because it's just you're taking a once-in-a-lifetime happenstance and you're saying, oh, happened again. Another young guy who's running out of money. Like, no.
Right.
It's
Exactly.
lazy.
Yeah.
I don't...
But there again, if that wanted to be a one-shot, that's fine. And in a way it is because you can still go out and pick up a Peter Parker book as well.
Yeah.
So that to me isn't as egregious, but it's still it's still lazy.
It's lazy, and you're cheapening the experience that Peter Parker had by making it happen again. That's like if they were to make another Wolverine. It's like so someone else has Logan's exact powers and his exact past. You have a healer. Well, there are a lot of healers in the X-Men universe, and even there's Lady Deathstrike and other people, but she's a healer who Weapon X or whatever. But to make another dude who is hundreds of years old, who was disillusioned, who volunteered for this program, who has bone claws, who got adamantium grafted onto him, who has a bad temper, who smokes cigars, who wears wife beaters. It's just like it's the same. Just to do that again, it's just like that doesn't happen to just anybody. It's
right.
You know what I mean?
And see here's what I say about something like Michael B. Jordan being cast in the Fantastic Four. Mm-hmm. For me that doesn't even matter because for me I don't like the Fantastic Four and I don't feel like their characters ever worked. So why not try something new? But again, I know that probably is a little hypocritical because I've just said don't change established things. Yeah. And I guess I would prefer that they did.
Unless I don't like them.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, but there again, it's subjective.
Well, the thing...
Plus, Michael B. Jordan is pretty much a baller, so he can do whatever he wants. But yeah, I would prefer
I
that
prefer
they did
them not do it, but what I have a bigger problem with is, aren't him and Sue Storm not the same? Like, whoever is Sue Storm, isn't she not black? Isn't she a white actress? Didn't they hire, like, a white...
it's Kate Mara.
Okay, so they're siblings, though, and... Look, I'm not a biologist, but usually kids who have racially diverse parents don't come out a black guy and a white girl. They come out.
I assume they'll be adopted,
mixed some kind. Yeah, but then it's like, why adopt them? What the fuck?
Well,
why not just hire a black woman to play Sue Storm?
Yeah, well, that too.
Kerry Washington, or I don't know, somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Lupita Nyong'o.
Yeah,
like just. I don't understand. Just
yeah, I got you.
I'd prefer them not to change them, but I don't know. Like, I can't explain why I don't have as much of a problem with that either. I mean,
yeah,
I don't really have a problem with it, and
it's because we're not invested in those characters.
And it's because they're not as well known, and it's just like they don't have as much of an established history as I don't know. Sorry, yeah. I didn't mean Reed Richards and Sue Storm, Johnny Storm.
Yeah, Johnny Storm.
Sorry.
Yeah, they.
Yeah, I'm cool with them. I'm cool with a racially mixed marriage.
Yes.
God, I set myself up for something there.
But no, they. The big guys, especially the ones that like fans have waited forever for a character like Thor to be in the spotlight, and now that he is, they're changing him up. You know, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And Thor's not broke. Mm-hmm. Fantastic Four, yeah, that's kind of broke.
Mm-hmm.
I guess.
Well,
that's
exactly.
right.
Like the story. It has not worked with the formula that they've tried it with. So trying that and imbuing the characters with different aspects and different traits and different backgrounds might help bring it to life, because it has not worked on the big screen.
Yeah.
You know, so
exactly.
it is a perfect opportunity to try it.
Right. True.
Anyway, all right. Well, I think that's all we have to say about that. And
before we dig our hole any deeper,
guys, thanks for listening. And stay tuned for more stuff in the future.
Yeah.
Yo. Ah.
Days of Hooper.
Days of Hooper to come.
Days of... Yes.
Okay. Well, goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, Hooper.
Yeah.